What does success look like for Canada 4 years from now if you're elected?
I think it's a place where every kid grows up knowing that they can achieve anything they want. Parents sit them down and say, look, what do you want to do? You want to be an astronaut? You want to start a business? You want to cure cancer? You just want to have a nice house with a dog and have a couple of kids that play street hockey in the front driveway? You can do any of that. All you have to do is work hard.
Hi, I'm Joseph Bourne. This is Born Truth, and today we're going to be covering Pierre. He's been going on a lot of podcasts, and we're just going to go through and see all the most vital information that he's been putting on these podcasts, all of his policies, the best ones, and my thoughts on them.
As the leader of the country, you have to unite everybody. How do you envision doing that?
Well, that's a big job. I mean, I think right now people are more divided than ever in Canada. And I think it's a bit by design. The government of the day is sought to divide people in order to stay in power. And I think that's the wrong approach. We need to unite people around what I call the Canadian promise. Make everyone feel like they can achieve something in this country by being part of the community and by working hard. That's what's missing right now. I also think we have to get away from identity politics, which divides people based on their group origins and separates them into categories. The reason why we haven't had big sectarian divisions in Canada is because we judge them as people as individuals.
Yeah, and this is something that I see a lot of, especially in my community, the Black community. I don't like to say communities. I don't really see us as different communities. We're all just people living in Canada. We're all Canadians. We all grew up with kind of the same kind of upbringings. But I don't know, like I see a lot of division when it comes to the liberals. They want to divide us by sex, by gender, by race, and they want to tell us that we're all different and we should explore our differences. And yes, I guess we should explore our differences, and I do agree with that to a certain extent, but we should also explore our similarities. We're similar in a lot of ways, and I think that that's the thing that we're missing in Canada. We're too divisive. We need to come back together in unity, and we need to actually talk about the things that affects all of us, because this is the problem now. We have all these people thinking about all these things that only affect them, instead of thinking about, oh, well, how is this going to affect everyone in the country? And if we can bring it back to all of us seeing ourselves as one country, one people, united on under one flag, then I think we're going to be closer to having a more united and a better Canada.
To many voters now, the promises sound very similar on carbon tax, crime, energy, and investment. So how are you different now?
Well, to the extent that they are the same at all, the difference is sincerity, because I've been saying the exact same thing the whole time. And in the last 2 months, they've adopted pale imitations of my policies to try and kind of trick people into thinking they're getting conservative policies by voting Liberal. But, let's on the carbon tax, for example, the Liberals have not gotten rid of the carbon tax that they brought in. They've just made it disappear from the gas pumps through a regulatory command that they can easily reverse if they're reelected. The law is still in place, and they do admit they want to increase it on Canadian industry.
Pale imitations indeed. I actually agree completely. I mean, even the carbon tax law, it's still in place. They did lower it or make it zero at the pumps, but that doesn't defeat the fact that it's actually still in place as a law. So anytime that they want, just like they took it off of the pumps, they can put it right back on the pumps at basically any price that they want. So um, that's what he means by pale imitation. It's not actually like what his policies would be if he gets into government, because he would get rid of the entire law. But the liberals, they're still big on climate change. They're still big on taxing us in order to save it. Apparently, all these economists come together and they all said, yeah, the best way for us to the best way for us to lower emissions is to tax people, to disincentivize them from driving their cars. And it's kind of, I don't know, like, who are these expert economists that thought of this one? Like, this is kind of like I don't know, in my opinion, this is like the dumbest way to make people stop, because either way, whether you tax me or not, I still need to use my car to get to work. I still need to use the bus to get to work. Even if it's like carpooling, how much does carpooling really reduce your? So I don't know. I don't really agree with the fact that they're saying that Pierre and the Liberals are similar, just because now the Liberals are adopting some of his policies. Like even the GST tax, they're saying that you're removing GST. I think the Liberals are removing GST for just first-time home buyers, which it sounds good on paper. Like, oh, they're trying to get first-time home buyers into the economy and buying houses, and it just sounds great. But what about people that lost their houses during COVID or lost their houses for financial reason, and now they want to get back into the market and buy a house for their family? Now they won't be able to buy their house for their family. So I don't know. It sounds good on paper, but like he said, pale imitation of his actual policies. And I don't know if people really think that, I think Pierre says this a lot. If people think that they're going to get conservative policies from a liberal government, you have another thing coming. What I actually want to see more of is Mark Carney differentiating himself from Justin Trudeau. I mean, a lot of the things that Justin Trudeau put in place, Mark Carney is supporting, like Bill C-69. Mark Carney still isn't getting rid of the carbon tax law. He runs away from reporters and he doesn't answer questions. He just keeps talking, saying a bunch of times. He doesn't know how to make a complete sentence without, oh, just give me a second. I'll address that question. That's a great question. Like he doesn't get to the point. And then we even have a clip where he was like talking to a reporter. The reporter was asking him about all the money that he has and where it's invested into. And he's like, look into your heart, Rosemary.
The rules say that those assets should be publicly disclosed within 120 days, which means you'll campaign in a coming federal election, most likely within the next 120 days, and are serving as Prime Minister now, with Canadians not being aware of what potential conflicts of interest you sought to avoid.
What possible conflict would you have, Stephanie? Stephanie, I'm complying with the rules. I'm complying with the rules in advance. Point final.
There's no possible conflict of interest in your assets. It's very difficult to believe.
Look inside yourself, Rosemary. I mean, you start from a prior of conflict and ill will.
Bro, look inside yourself. Yeah, this guy kills me. If he fails as a politician, I want to see him come out as a comedian.
Think we could ever get to a point where we had no income tax? If we really unleashed our natural resources?
Well, of course, income tax were only temporary to pay for World War I. So we saw how that worked out. I can't make that promise. I'd love to. They definitely make some headlines if I promise that right now. But we definitely need lower income tax. I call income tax the fine we pay for the crime of hard work.
I mean, when you've been paying income tax your whole life, and then you find out that there was a time when there was zero income tax, it kind of makes you hate your life just a little bit. But he has said that he's going to reduce income tax for the lowest bracket by 15%. That means that if you're paying 15% now, you're going to be paying 12.75%. So congratulations to you. I'm unfortunately not going to be a part of that, but I'm glad that other people can be able to save money on their income tax. And more Canadians need to actually think about that. Don't be so selfish. If the lowest bracket is getting a tax cut, that's going to be good for the whole country. Don't worry about whether it's good for you individually. That's a very selfish way to think of it. Actually think of it like, okay, that's more money they can invest. That's more money they can buy products from business. Maybe you have a business. Now they can buy more stuff from your business. So I like to think of it like that. And I don't know. If you ask me, this is going to be a very good run if Pierre does get in, because if he continues to lower income tax, if he continues to cut the deficits, if we can pay back our national debt, I think that we can definitely see a world where we're living in no income tax, because we could just bring in investment. We can bring in money from tariffs, tariffing other countries. We can bring in money based on the production of oil, LNG, our electricity. Like we could sell natural resources instead of taxing our own people, which I think would be great. I want to live in a world like that, but probably not in the next 10 years. Maybe in 20 if we keep the liberals out of the government. I don't know. Maybe.
How do you plan to balance the budgets while ensuring essential services? And what impact do you think this will have, the going from an unbalanced budget where we're borrowing essentially from our kids in the future to a balanced budget on the economy?
So there's two questions there: how to balance, and then what's the impact of a balanced budget. We have to stop the growth in government spending. I would bring in a hard dollar for dollar law that says any new dollar of spending needs to be met with an equal dollar of savings. They brought this in the 1990s in the US under Bill Clinton, and they balanced the budget. They paid off $400 billion of debt, and they had a booming economy at the same time. So that law then lapsed in 2001, and America went right back into deficit. The problem is, the great Thomas Sowell said, the number one rule of economics is scarcity. People always want more than there is to have. And the number one rule of politics is to ignore the number one rule of economics. And so I think that we've got politicians who, by the nature of the job, don't have to experience scarcity. They just externalize it through money printing, taxing, and borrowing.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of money printing and ignoring the rules of economics and just ignoring economics in general. I mean, we literally had a prime minister that on camera said that the budget will balance itself. I mean, if that's not the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life, especially, matter of fact, not even the most ridiculous thing, that's the scariest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, because it came out of the mouth of the person that was running my country. So I'm super glad that Pierre's coming in with his dollar for dollar law, where you have to have $1 of savings for every dollar of spending. That's definitely going to help balance the budget. I really appreciate that policy. It's actually one of the biggest reasons why I want him in, because we need less government spending. We need more accountability in the government. I mean, we've been letting the government just run wild for the past 10 years, and look where it's gotten us. We're terribly in debt. Trudeau literally doubled our deficit. I've never seen this level of spending in my entire life. My life has been short, but that's still saying something. And a lot of other people, matter of fact, every single person in Canada that's alive right now has never seen this level of spending. I think we need to reverse course. We need to just hit the reset button and start making things make sense. And the only way we're going to do that is if we get the conservative government in. And I'm not saying that I'm a diehard conservative. I'm just a common sense person that understands that another 4 years of the liberals, we're not going to have a country anymore. This is how I see it. But come on, I mean, what a goat. This guy is just quoting Thomas Sowell off the top of his head. I read his book, Basic Economics, very great book. I recommend anyone read that. Matter of fact, that should be a requirement to graduate high school. You should have to read Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics. I actually have a lot of his other stuff in my wish list. Can't wait to read that. That's going to be fun.
It's very slow to get anything done in Canada. We have the second slowest building permits in the OECD, and it takes 17 years to get a mine approved, 3 times longer to get approval for a housing development in Canada versus the UK or the US. I was speaking to a really successful British Columbia businessman, and he started a application for a plaza in BC. Took him 7 years. He flew down to Dallas, and the mayor met him at the airport and said, what do we have to do to get this done? And they sat down and hammered it out. He had his permits in 7 weeks. So where do you think the next plaza is going to go? It's not going to be in BC. So to answer your question, what's the solution? We should set a goal to bring together all 3 levels of government and get the fastest building permits in the world, in the developed world. Really, sure, we can protect the environment and public safety, but we don't have to take 7, 8, 9 years to do that. You can do it let's try getting it down to 6 or 7 months for major projects. I'm going to incentivize the municipalities to speed up permits for housing developments.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane, right? 7 years? Are you out of your mind? Why would anyone in their right mind build in Canada? I mean, in America, typically it takes somewhere about 2 years to get something done. And in Canada, it takes about 5. I mean, that's more than double the amount of time. And then you look at the prices of housing, you're going to see the permits and the bureaucracy reflected in the price of housing. People always ask me, oh, well, how do you think that we can get down the price of housing? Well, first of all, if you want to start with the bureaucracy, that's going to cut down the price of housing significantly. The other things that would get rid of the price of housing is obviously supply and demand. Obviously depends on where the house is located, in which area, and depends on the value of the other houses around it. But typically, lowering the cost of producing a product, lowering the cost of producing a product is typically going to be your best bet when it comes to lowering the actual price of that product. So once you lower the costs by permits or lowering regulation, then you're going to start to see the prices of houses come down. A lot of people have concerns of deflation in our country, but I mean, who told your, to excuse my language, dumb ass to buy a $1.7 million house that's only a 4 bedroom? I mean, that's insane. Why would you even do that? So I don't really feel bad for you. I mean, the fact that you had 1.7 million to even buy a house means that you probably caught the house boom that sent your $100,000 house up to $1 million in value. So you got to enjoy your glory years. It's time for my generation to buy a house, okay? I don't know what to tell you.
It sounds like regulations just only increase. Like there's a natural entropy to regulations where it's just, they keep growing and we never get rid of them. Is your government considering a policy that would be, for every new regulation, we get rid of 5 or 10 or?
Well, that's good. I went with 2. We announced 2 for 1. That's after an initial cut of 25%. So our commitment is cut 25% and then bring in a 2 for 1 rule overseen by the Auditor General, not by the government. And the reason that's important because there is a 1 for 1 rule right now. So what the government is doing is they've kept the number of titles down, but they've merged more regulation under each title. And so if you don't have an independent audit of how much actual regulation there is, not just in rule count, but in compliance cost, then you'll never actually reduce the size.
I'm with the interviewer guy. I mean, yeah, let's cut it by 5 or 10 for every one. Like, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, the fact that they've been getting away with putting regulations and just like meshing them together so you don't actually have to get rid of the actual regulation, but it still looks like one law or one rule is insane. I mean, how dumb do you think we are? You didn't think we were going to notice? Well, I guess some of us are dumb because some people are going to vote liberal, but it's okay. I pray for those people and I still love them, but don't come to my birthday party.
Now, Ireland's per capita GDP is twice Canada's. And why? Because they opened up to free enterprise. They have very low taxes, very fast permits, lots of free trade, and they don't have any of our resources. They're not next door to the biggest economy in the world. So they shouldn't be anywhere as rich as Canada, but they're twice our GDP. But it shows that if you unlock free enterprise, then you can achieve incredible boosts in your living standards in a very short period of time. And that's what I think we can do in Canada.
Yeah, that's why I hate this whole shift towards socialism. I mean, everything in history has told us that the freer your society is, the more prosperous your people will be. And that is capitalism. Capitalism is free market. And that's why I don't like all these arguments that people bring to me. They say stuff like, oh, well, in Scandinavian countries, they're socialists and they're prospering and nothing's wrong with their country. No, actually, they're not socialists. They're actually highly capitalist and they have a very strong social um, uh, net where they can catch people if they fall. And that's very strong. But the only reason why it's strong, this social safety net, the only reason why it's strong is because there's a high level of capitalism on top of it that produces a lot more than it spends when it comes to the social safety net. So if you don't have a strong capitalist framework, you can't have a strong social safety net. This is what we need in Canada. We need stronger capitalism so that we can fund the socialism that's underlying. And I still believe that we should have less and less people every year that need to rely on these programs. Unless you are you permanently have to rely on the programs. So if you're disabled or maybe you're a single mother, something like that, where you're like long term or you're permanently on these programs, sure, you can enjoy those programs. But the fact that we have a growing population that needs to rely on social programs, something's got to change. This is getting ridiculous. We need change in Canada. I can't live here if this keeps going. I can't. How am I supposed to raise a family?
I want to talk about what's on everybody's mind, tariffs. How should we respond to the U.S.? Is tit for tat the right approach in a situation where one trading partner is significantly larger than the other?
I do think you need to retaliate, because if not, there's no deterrent value. The offending country, in this case, it's the U.S. administration, needs to know that there's a cost for its producers in tariffing Canada. So I do believe in retaliating. On day one, what I would propose to the president is, let's put the tariffs on ice. Let's sit down and renegotiate the CUSMA in a very quick turnaround.
Yeah. I actually get this argument. I had to convince myself, but you have to punish bad behavior. If someone breaks their agreement with the tariffs, say, for example, they break their agreement with us, then we have to show us that we're not going to stand for you breaking our agreement. So that's why the retaliatory tariffs, it's not more strategic in the sense that we're actually going to win a trade war with the US, but it's more strategic in the fact that if the US does this again, they know that we're not just going to sit by and let you tariff us. We're going to retaliate. And I understand we're tariffing our own people in a sense, but we are also hurting their industry when we put tariffs on our own industries. That's just a fact. So, yeah, I mean, I get the argument there. I still don't like retaliatory tariffs, but if this is the argument for it, then I can see it lasting for a couple, just for like short term. I don't see it like a long term plan to deter it. But yeah, short term, I can see this working. I just hate this whole Trump thing because the liberals are trying to act like the only reason we're getting decimated economically is because of Trump, which is a complete lie. And I don't like them using that as their whole platform. So whenever Trump comes up, I kind of get a little bit agitated, but I understand it's still a problem. But I'm thinking that as soon as Pierre comes in, he's just going to, exactly like he said in the clip, we're just going to put a pause on ours. You put a pause on yours. Let's come to the negotiating table. Let's get a deal done.
Do you think your position on media allows you to be covered accurately? When one candidate is saying we shouldn't be offering as many subsidies to media, and one candidate is offering more subsidies to media, how do we, like, I don't understand this.
I think it's a problem. You know, I think it makes it very difficult for media to make a judgment without keeping in the back of their head, well, which politician is going to pay the biggest subsidy. And I think that's worrisome. The media should be objectively reporting on the stories. But if, you know, a politician is coming along and saying, well, I'm going to give more money to this or that outlet than my opponent will, then obviously that could create the perception of bias in the resulting reporting. And I don't think government should control the media. I think the idea of a free press is that it's independent from the government.
I mean, I get it, Pierre. You're not trying to say what you actually feel, but you know, I can do it for you, so don't even worry about it. First of all, the fact that one candidate is pledging hundreds of millions of dollars in support of this media and one is saying that they're going to cut it is basically the definition of bias. So what is really going to incentivize these news outlets to actually report on the news properly? And me personally, this is something I heard someone say and I agree with it. I think we should have one news channel in Canada. It should basically be funded by the government, not based on whoever federally is in. I think it should just be funded by the government, regardless of who's running the country, whether that be liberal or conservative. And it should only report on news. It should not have any narratives. It should not have any gotcha moments. It should not have any biases. It should just be straight news. Today, the report is that the weather is this, and what happened in politics today is this, and this is what he said, and no interpretation of what he said. Just tell us what he said. We'll come up with our own interpretation of the information. We're not idiots. We're adults. We can think for ourselves. Just present us with the information, and then that's it. Get out the way. But the CBC, the CTV, Global, all these news outlets, they want to put their own narrative in there. They want to put their own spin in there to get more clicks and likes, and it's garbage. If you want to be a news outlet that isn't subsidized by the, well, if you want to be a news outlet, you shouldn't be subsidized by the government, other than the one subsidy I just said. And then all the other news outlets, just be news outlets that make their own money through your own grit and through your own merit and through your own work. Like, why do you need subsidies from the government? I don't understand. And then you get those subsidies and now all of a sudden you're being biased towards one side. That is crazy. That's definitely the definition of a conflict of interest. And that's why I don't watch traditional news anymore. It's just garbage. I just watch independent sources, because at least the independent sources, at least I know whether they're biased or not. And I don't have to worry about it. And I don't have to worry about my tax dollars going towards a biased source. It's insane.
What role, if any, should the government play in the process of regulating speech?
The criminal code already bans incitements to violence and incitement to genocide, other utterances that are designed to instruct a violent or hostile attack against a particular group of people. That is in the criminal code already, and that has not harmed free speech. What I worry about, you're talking about people marching down streets and shouting death to this or that group. A lot of that is not the result of free speech, but it's about a very toxic ideology that has been pushed from the top down. You look at the way the Jewish community has been targeted. Well, governments have pushed ideologies through universities and schools and even government departments that have given grants to extreme racists, anti-Semites. And so the ideology is not coming from, Joe and Jane public going online and just blurting out obscenities about a particular group. It's coming from a really toxic, radical ideology that has proliferated in halls of power over the last roughly decade. We had one guy, Laith Maruth, who said things about Jews that I can't even repeat. The guy got a grant for an anti-racism program. The University of Ottawa had hired a guy as a professor who had committed a terrorist attack in Paris before he came to Canada. Some of the schools are pushing kids to go into these awful anti-Israel, anti-Jewish protests.
Yeah, this is basically how you brainwash a generation. You go and tell them that they're oppressed, and they're oppressed because of this group or that group, and you should hate this group for this particular reason. And then next thing you know, this ideology spreads like wildfire throughout the population, and people just hate other people for no reason. None of this was prevalent when I was growing up, when I was in elementary school, high school. I didn't even know what racism was. And now all of a sudden, everyone's thinking about anti-Semite and all this other stuff. I literally would not have known whether you were Jewish unless you told me. Like, I did not see race like that. Like, nobody really saw race back then. Like, if you were black, it was whatever. If you were black, you were just some guy. If you were white, you were just some guy. If you were Asian, you were just some guy. And we all just played basketball and played sports, hockey, all this stuff together. And no one ever actually thought about it. But it was not until they started talking about it on every single day, just shoving it down your throat, then all of a sudden there's this hate speech. Oh, everyone hates each other. No, people have always hated each other, but it was never about race. It was about, you just clipped me, bro, or you cheated, or you lied, or you stole. It was never about race. So yeah, I mean, you keep putting this toxic stuff into the environment, and when people die of poison, you go, oh, what happened? Well, you happened. I actually looked into the guy that he named, the guy that they gave the loan to, the grant to, $122,000 for a project to help combat racism. This was his tweet, and I'm going to quote him. So this is him. Quote, "You know all those loud-mouthed bags of human feces, aka the Jewish white supremacists. When we liberate Palestine and they have to go back to where they come from, they will return to being low-voiced B-words of their sick, Christian, secular, white, supremacist masters." Wow. They gave this guy a $122,000 grant for anti-racism. I mean, this is like the most ironic thing I've ever read in my entire life. I mean, vet the people you're giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to. Please, like, I gave him hundreds. It's not their money. This is the thing about the government. This is my money that they're giving to this guy.
Like, I went to a treatment center in Moncton, and I said to the guys there, often I'm sure politicians come and say, I'm going to offer this or that help to you, but I'm actually here to ask you for help. I need you to get better so that you can then go out onto the street and find the next guy, and you can pull him up by his hand, and you can bring him in here and make him get better, and he can go out and pull the next guy up. And through that virtuous cycle, we can defeat this scourge. And and bring peace back to our streets.
I hope you're right. Healthcare in Canada is primarily a provincial responsibility, but the federal government provides crucial funding and guidance. How would you work with the provinces to ensure consistent, high-quality healthcare across the country?
So we're going to preserve the funding. There's a funding increase that's baked into the Canada Health Transfer right now. We're going to preserve that. But we think there's some really low-cost things we can do to massively expand the availability of physicians and nurses. So we have, for example, 20,000 immigrant doctors, 32,000 immigrant nurses who can't work because they don't have a license in Canada. It's not because they're not qualified. It's just there's no way to prove their qualifications that doesn't involve years of bureaucracy.
I mean, did you hear that, liberals? He literally said that he goes to treatment centers and asks those people who are getting through it to go and pull other people up that are getting over their drug addictions. He is literally saying that he's going to preserve the funding that goes into healthcare, and he's going to work with the provinces to ensure everyone gets their healthcare. I mean, what is your problem? All this like healthcare stuff. Oh, well, he's going to get rid of healthcare. He's going to privatize everything. Where are you getting this information? You're hearing from his mouth that he's going to preserve the funding. Okay, so now the conversation is done, right? We don't have to talk about it anymore. Perfect.
If you have power, how do we prevent people from abusing that power? I mean, you can legislate things, but I mean,
That's a question as old as man.
For the past 10 years, I mean, we've seen scandal after scandal and sort of no consequences to those. So how does that work? I mean, let's tackle specifically with AI. How do we ensure that the government can be held accountable in a world where they might control information flow?
I think transparency. People need to know what rules are government imposing on the AI companies and what instructions are they giving the companies. All of that should be publicly known.
Yeah, government, we need transparency. None of this, I go on the government website to look something up and it says NA, not available. What do you mean not available? You're accountable to me. You work for me. If I went to my employee and I said, hey, I need this information for this thing, and they looked at me like, it's not available, well, they're fired. So I guess we should just start firing government officials more. I don't know how to do that, but we're going to get it done. This is ridiculous. If you are going to say that we're going to be transparent to our people, then you need to be transparent to our people. I should not be going on your website talking about it's down, not available, all this garbage. No, you need to be accountable to us. That's how it works. Well, if Pierre comes in, then that's what I want to see.
How will you ensure that Canada does its part in tackling climate change while also continuing to grow the economy and ensuring Canada and Canadians remain globally competitive?
That's a good question. I think we have to remember the problem of carbon leakage, which is when you increase taxes and burdens on Canadian industry to a point where production offshores in more polluting jurisdictions, and then you end up with even more global pollution while you have even less Canadian output and industry. And that's what I think we've seen over the last decade. The government has increased taxes on investment, on energy, on payroll. So businesses say, well, it's cheaper to go produce in some other place where they have no regulations. I'll give you the most obvious example to me is the Suntech tomatoes in Manotick. They're paying a carbon tax on the CO2 they release into the greenhouse, even though it's absorbed by the plant life. That's grade school science. So the Mexican tomato is more affordable in Manotick than the Manotick tomato. So the government sends a price signal to the consumer to buy a tomato that had to be transported burning fossil fuels from Mexico by truck and train all the way to Canada.
Well, anyone who follows me, you know that I'm a certified climate change denier. I've been bestowed that title by many, many liberals because I think that CO2 is plant food, which, I thought that we covered that in elementary school, but I guess a lot of people didn't get that. But I think we need more CO2 and sue me. But yeah, I think for globally, we definitely should have, we should probably make it a little bit less globally, which is why I support sending LNG over to high polluting countries that are using things like coal, and people are still using animal dung. I mean, it's literally feces. So yeah, I think we should export our LNG. It's way less harsh when it comes to CO2 emissions. So I completely agree with what Pierre is saying, and also think that we should, he's saying we should basically, um, you're getting a lot more CO2 depending on where you're producing your products and how much you have to ship it and drive and all this other stuff that burns CO2. So yeah, this is a really good solution. I mean, you know me, man. I still think that Canada, we're basically net zero. If not, we are net zero or net negative. And I have yet to see anyone prove me wrong on that. And I don't care about all this other fake science that you want to throw at me. I want some real numbers, real statistics. I don't want someone's opinion. No. Prove to me by an actual study that actually studies all the CO2 that we produce and all the CO2 that is absorbed over an actual good length of time. And you can produce, if you want to produce that information and convince me, then you are free to do that. But until then, Canada is net zero. I don't care what anyone says.